We end up interviewing about 50 students, and we're looking for people who have shown community leadership by stepping up. They take the initiative, they're really innovative, they solve problems. And it's a tough choice, but that's really what I want to tell people is it's not just the 20 students you can read about who have received our scholarships. There are so many more doing great stuff, and it has not diminished over the years. I think as adults, we can see the world's problems as really daunting. But there are lots of young people out there. They don't care about all that. It's just there's a thing in front of them, and they have a passion to attack it. And, the skeptics might say, oh, well, that's just because they're naive. But the great thing, because I stay in touch with my alumni, I can tell you they may become less naive, but they don't give up. They are lifelong change makers, and they just get better at it.
Hello and welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Linda Ulrich, and I'm also the founder of the Goodness Exchange, which is the mothership website of this podcast. Today, we're going to dive into a conversation that will leave you marveling at just how far a single act of belief in the right person at the right time can ripple out into amazing things. My guest today is Dr. Jane Thompson, historian, author, and scholarship provider, a quiet powerhouse who has spent decades working with a major Canadian bank to select, support, and celebrate young changemakers with college scholarships. But what she's doing is about so much more than financial support. Jane and the bank she works for have helped launch over 600 students into a new orbit, not just with money, but with mentorship and community and a belief in their potential. And so much so that many of them have not heard that kind of belief in themselves in their lives. So this is some big stuff, folks. So many kids have had an opportunity that they wouldn't have had before because of Jane's 25 years of work. This is the kind of good news that too often falls under the radar screen. It just doesn't make the new evening news. But because of what Jane and her team have witnessed, I wanted to share this immediately with you when I learned about her work. She's seen lives change in ways that no one could predict. Kids who might have dropped out of school because of their life complications stay with it. Networks of change makers form in unexpected ways, and scholarships recipients often go on to create positive ripples themselves for their families, their communities, and the world. As Jane says, these students are not drops of water. She feels like she's standing in a river of abundance with intellect and energy, and we're going to have her tell us all about that now. So if you ever wondered whether your encouragement, your time, or your investment in someone could make a real difference, I think we're going to learn in this episode that the answer is a resounding yes. Today, we're going to explore this extraordinary potential with Jane, waiting in the wings, just looking for somebody to say, we see you and we believe in you. Welcome, Dr. Jane Thompson.
Oh, thank you so much, Linda. That's just such a heartwarming introduction.
Well, I'll tell you, I thought long and hard about that, and I hope I don't look like I'm reading it too badly, but, I didn't want to leave out one line of that. Because all of it, I was inspired to jot down after I talked to you. Jane and I had a pre-call of, gosh, that must have been like an hour and a half. Yeah. We instantly clicked. And every bit of that is what we aren't hearing enough about, right? We just hear about the doom and the gloom and the next generation, what they aren't, but we don't hear about who they are and what their potential is. And that's, I know, what we're going to give people a really good feeling about by the end of this interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said when we were chatting before, you said, it's a much bigger good news story than the 20 that we actually chose. So the deal is that you choose 20 kids, and there's got to be some limit, resources and all that. Out of, I think you told me you get 3,000 applications.
Yeah,
3,000
that's right.
applications. You got to whittle it down to 20. And that really impressed me. You said it's a much bigger good news story than the 20 that we actually chose. And that's what I want you to talk about. There is a wealth of good next generation people out there, right?
Oh, absolutely. And just to give you an idea of how this kind of pyramid works, I've got lots of mountain range metaphors, but when I think about the students, so in Canada, there are about 400,000 students graduating every year from high school in about 4,000 schools. So, 100 kids in a class. Well, when we say it's like 3,000 applications is a lot of applications. It's another mountain. But that's not even the best kid out of every school. So we hear from, the best kid from 3 out of 4 schools, and we look at them and we ask them to provide 3 letters of reference. So it's not like somebody just thinks, oh yeah, I'll apply to 100 scholarships and I'll do it 5 minutes before the deadline. And I kind of do a few volunteer hours and I sit on my student council. Like, no. We got 3,000 amazing people out there that we hear from. So I get this I often say, I'm like peering through this keyhole into student life every year for the last 25 years. And what I see are these kids who say, and the ones we're interested in are saying, this is not working well. There's something I see, and I'm the one who's going to step up. So the 3,000 are amazing students. They are students that their principals and guidance counselors and teachers are thrilled to write letters for. And I wish everybody could read these letters because it's all good news. The teachers are saying, this is the best student I have seen in my career. I've been teaching for 30 years and everybody loves them and they've changed the culture in the school. And that may not even be somebody I interview. So we get this, we're going through it all, and we've got a readers panel now of between 30 and 40 people who kind of look at it for the first time. And they hate their jobs because they have to say no to all these kids. It's just heartbreaking. But anyway, we go through the process and we have our own, secret magic criteria that we apply. So we end up interviewing about 50 students. And we're looking for people who have shown community leadership by stepping up. They take the initiative, they're really innovative, they solve problems. And it's a tough choice, but that's really what I want to tell people is it's not just the 20 students you can read about who have received our scholarships. There are so many more doing great stuff. And it has not diminished over the years. Like, think about that, doing something, essentially the same job for 25 years. And that's what I meant when I told you on our call. It's not just the occasional drop of water. It is this river I stand in of young people who I think as adults, we can see the world's problems as really daunting. And especially when we mentioned in our podcast, sometimes it feels like it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. When you're in the middle of the 1 step back, it doesn't feel very good. But there are lots of young people out there who they don't care about all that. It's just there's a thing in front of them and they have a passion to attack it. And the skeptics might say, oh, well, that's just because they're naive. But the great thing, because I stay in touch with my alumni, I can tell you they may become less naive, but they don't give up.
Interesting.
They are lifelong change makers and they just get better at it.
And that's really counter to the narrative about the generations, right?
Absolutely.
That's instantly when I heard about your work. I've done some other interviews. You just mentioned one before we press the record button here, an interview I did with AJ Craybill. Later on in this conversation, I'll give people a link to 3 folks who will back up everything that Dr. Thompson is saying here. There is an enormous wave of goodness and progress with this generation that's heading into their college years right now. And you know what? I think I knew that, but I didn't know that it'd been there for 25 years. That's the
I've been doing it
perspective.
for 25. This program's been in place for 30 years. So
Gives me goosebumps.
Me too. Because, for a corporation to commit to what is essentially a generational, national program, I mean, that's really something. When results are being measured quarterly, to stay committed to something for 30 years is amazing.
That means they see the change that they're responsible for.
That's right.
Yeah. It can only be done that consistently with that much gusto if they're going, yeah, we got to keep this going.
Yeah.
This is okay. So, our big thing on the Goodness Exchange and this podcast, The Conspiracy of Goodness, is that we are celebrating what's right with the world. I know there's a gazillion things that's wrong with the world, and somebody else is covering that really well, like lots of somebody else. But what I don't run across very often is folks that are celebrating what's right with the world. So with the rest of this interview, I want you to help us feel some of the passion, that like a lot of the things that have driven you forward. Because we had quite some conversation in our pre-call. And you and I have a million things in common. In fact, I think I'm going to come visit you sometime in Canada.
Please.
I see an evening on the deck for us. But I really want you to help us understand the big picture about supporting young people. That I see you and I believe in you is something that I think is being lost in translation. I'm sure there are people out there doing that in every high school in North America, possibly the world, people whose job it is to do that. But help us appreciate how important that is for us as neighbors. Maybe we can do something to support the neighbor kid. Maybe we can do something to support a nephew who lives in a household that's not ideal, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Tell us what happens when you get a kid. You had this great way of saying all these things that happen when you help a kid get into college and stay there.
Yeah.
What happens to their lives and their future?
Well, if we start kind of from the beginning of it, there's the initial burst of, oh, I really am doing good things, because it's not just my aunt or my friendly neighbor who's kind of going, wow, you're amazing. It's a huge corporation. So there's that power. One of the things that we talked about a lot, and we talk about this a lot in the scholarship world, is it's not just the money. The money's nice and the money is necessary. But what I think the model of a middle-class kid whose parents also went to college, who has lots of information and kind of a support there. And we have lots of those kids. This is not a needs-based scholarship, but it's easy to forget how tough it is for a student, as you say, who maybe their home situation is not quite as great. Maybe there aren't the resources there or the knowledge. We have a lot of kids who are first generation into post-secondary, or their parents went to post-secondary in another country, far away. So for those kids, a scholarship like this gives them choice. So all of a sudden, just like a middle-class kid, instead of having to go to the one college, which is in their town, so they can live in their parents' basement, all of a sudden it opens up. They could go to McGill in Montreal, world famous university. They could go to UBC in Vancouver. They could go anywhere. And their parents may have been saying, you should really take, pick something practical, welding, accounting, whatever. And those are great things for a student who has a passion for welding or accounting. But now all of a sudden they can say, yeah, but what I really want to do is study political philosophy or social work or whatever. So it gives them a lot of choice in where they go, what they study, and the ability to run some risks and the ability to change their mind later. So all these things make the university experience way more likely to propel them along their path of being a force for positive social change in the future. The other things they tell us is, because we interview them over and over again, graduating more or less without student debt gives them choices after university. Do they want to go to law school? Do they want to do a master's degree? Do they want to take a job that doesn't pay terrifically well? So there's a time lag in the benefit that way too. And the other thing that you mentioned about the network in the community, and I would just love it if we could do a link to Raj Chetty's work out of Harvard.
Okay.
Professor Chetty and his team have done fantastic work on how young people from a lower socioeconomic status, who are just poorer families, do way better if they're in a high school mixed up with middle-class kids. Because those cross-class friendships give them the social capital to find out about university, to get help with university applications, to know about internships, all that stuff. So our network of scholars, because they're from all different socioeconomic classes, has the same effect. So I get kids all the time on our forum saying, I think I want to go to grad school to study X. Is there anybody out there who's done that? And then they get all these answers. I want to do an international internship with this organization. Does anybody know anything about that? So that stuff that middle-class kids kind of get from their parents' friends, our students get from our alumni. So there's a whole kind of big wraparound bunch of things that it takes to lift these kids. And that's what we're trying to do.
And it goes the other way too. I'm sure kids that you select that do come from pretty fortunate environments, they see a whole lot of benefits from knowing a depth and breadth of different kinds of people.
Yeah, they learn incredibly. And the other thing we try really hard to do is we always have national representation. So somebody from the East Coast is meeting people from the West Coast that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. We have a big belief, and this has come to fruition, that this is the secret, big, hairy, audacious goal. It's not on our website, but there is great research out there that says countries run better when the leaders of the unions, the public sector, the private sector, elected officials, the arts, like whoever I'm missing, are connected somehow. In the old days in France, they all went to the Sorbonne and they married each other's sisters. So we're trying to, move away from that model of elites to say, no, it's leaders. And if the leaders can talk to each other, great. So this is what I get with our alumni. And we have conferences, and when you and I were talking, I was saying that our big conferences, we design very carefully, and we think about the programming and big group events and small group events and this speaker and that speaker and will the workshop work? Totally doesn't matter. The 200 of them who turn up, we could put them in a ballroom and toss in some buns and close the doors, and they would get almost all the benefit out of it because they just automatically, they connect, they self-organize, they figure out, oh, we're all interested in environmentalism and I'm doing this project and, oh, you could really help me. Here's a story for you. I'm in our nation's capital, Ottawa, to do our big awards weekend. And I'm visiting some friends at the same time. And we go out to Almont, which is this really picturesque little town outside Ottawa. It's where they make all the Hallmark movies, literally where they make the Hallmark movies. I'm walking down the street and I hear somebody say, Jane. And I mean, it's not like I'm a famous person. I don't get recognized on the street ever. And I turn around and it's this fantastic woman, E. I'm going to use a lot of initials today. And she says, oh, it's so great to see you. And this is a woman who runs theater workshops and like skill building using improv and theater. And she's also a theater director and she's just fantastic. And she said, you know what, that last conference, I met so-and-so's at McGill and she's running this management program. And the two of us got together, and now I'm doing workshops for her management program. It's like, exactly. The vision has come about. So all these great people are connected with other great people, and there's this amazing multiplier effect. So yeah, I live in a happy world.
Well, and that is why you're talking to me, because we just don't hear about this level of mechanics in society that work. We just hear about the mechanics that are broken. A lot of ranting and raving about that. But there is a lot of mechanics. And I want to go back to one point that you said and just see if you have any more thoughts on it. My kids, my husband and I are both dentists. And, but my husband comes from he comes from a family that had a very tight budget, 7 kids. Only dad worked outside the home. And so he knows what it's like to go to bed hungry. And what we taught our kids, and then my parents raised us like we didn't have a thing. What they taught us was that money does not buy you happiness, but what it does get you is choices. And that's something I think out in society we forget. No matter where we are on the socioeconomic level, we have a little bit more choices than somebody just below us on the economic ladder, and we have a lot less choices than the ones above us too. So it's that choices thing, and so often it's not really an individual's responsibility where they wind up. It's so much about the choices they had in the moment.
It's the choices they had, and also, so to me, choice sounds like a kind of positive, what am I going to do next thing.
Well, I'm even thinking bigger, like I have this friend I can call or I don't. Right. I have this mentor I can call or I don't. It's not just about what you can afford. It's like you said, it's
all the other stuff. And also it's the margin of error you've got. Mm-hmm. And this isn't my story. I mean, I hang out with scholarship providers. I hear lots about their experiences, but I thought this one just really got me where I lived. And they were talking about lots and lots of scholarships are needs-based. It's about if you don't have enough money to go to college, some group will give you some money. So they were talking about this young woman, and she had very carefully put together, and there's government funding in the US called a Pell Grant, and a whole lot of stuff is based on. So she had her Pell Grant, and she had funding from over here, and she had funding from over there, and she worked a part-time job, and she had her budget just like put together. And one nasty day, she got a flat tire on the car that she used to drive from her affordable apartment, which was not close to the university, not close to her part-time job. And she did not have whatever it was going to, $200 to fix the flat tire. She ended up dropping out of school for the sake of $200. And that it's the margin of error that comes with more resources. And again, helps you understand these aren't moral issues. That young woman didn't waste money. She didn't drive drunk and crash her car. There was no moral failing in this picture. She just got a flat tire, and she couldn't afford a flat tire.
Yeah. Okay. So you've been changing that situation for hundreds of kids all these years.
Yeah.
Give me a couple success stories that you're talking about, or some.
Oh, it made me crazy, Linda, because I was looking at these and thinking, which stories shall I tell? Where do I start? So on the side of somebody, so one of the things that I do say is that the easiest story to tell and to sell, funders love it, people love it, is what I call the zero to hero. We pulled this person out of the gutter, and because of our intervention, here they are, the Prime Minister of Greece. But, it's always more complicated than that. And there's many different ones. One of the ones that is a little bit like that is a young man I will call M. And he came from a very industrial city a lot of steel mills in Canada and a not great neighborhood in that pretty tough city. And he was just determined, but there was no way he was going to get to university. But when he just had no idea of how, and his parents were immigrants and just no pathway there at all and no funds. And in high school, he looked around and saw a lot of kids like him. And he started up basically a youth group. And they just started doing a lot of stuff. He thought, kids didn't have good ways to spend their time. So he started a basketball league. And then he figured out that actually it should be more than basketball. So they started doing food drives. And then he figured out that actually they all had the same questions that he had. So he started having meetings so they could all work on developing leadership and how do you get into university anyway. So he applied to us for funding, and we looked at this and went, holy crow. And it turned out, and this is not usual, actually, the bank would love all these folks to work for them, and a small minority do. What he really wanted was a career in financial services. He wanted to be a banker. And he just had no path from where he was in Steeltown to, the equivalent of Wall Street in Canada is Bay Street in Toronto. He had no path from the steel mills to Bay Street. But he, had his stuff together enough to apply to us. And we looked at this and thought, well, that's just amazing. And we brought him on, and lo and behold, this is what he's done. And he's had, he's well into his career now, 10 or 15 years out of university, and, got his professional designations. And man, oh man, he rocks that suit. Like, he wears it like armor he has earned. And he's involved with all of the business part of it and his clients, but also, the corporation's philanthropic efforts. And it's just, the thing about him, he had the ambition. He had the vision. What he needed was the support. So that's kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. That is a story. I'm sure if we could sometimes I'm in an airplane and I look down, I'm in the United States, I'm in northern Vermont, and I fly to central Illinois. And I almost spend the whole 2 hours of that flight looking down at the United States passing below me, and the mountains and the fields and the small towns and the big towns. And I think there's a story like that at every single sparkling light. And there's just no way we can know the true magnitude of the people who have created lives that serve others. Because I'm sure he feels like he's in the service of others in banking, right? He's
100%.
A service. Yeah. It's not the money. It's the choices that he can help people have in their lives.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about more amazing stories. We're going to talk about how some kids have to succeed despite their parents. We're going to talk about, moments when the ripple effect takes place, so many things. So let's take a break. You know how the constant negative noise in our digital lives feels like it's reaching a boiling point? Now, many of us have tuned out the news and social media almost entirely. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. There are newsworthy stories about amazing progress, innovation, leaps in human potential, and wonders in the natural world, and they're just not reaching the top of our feeds. We can have access to this, but none of us has the time or maybe even the emotional stamina to search through all the doom and gloom news to find what's right with the world. Okay, enter the Goodness Exchange. There, we are giving instant access to positive news for curious people. Did you hear about the recent Harvard study that found that exposure to just 4 minutes of good news can make you 32% less anxious and 18% more optimistic? Well, I don't know about you, but I need those kind of numbers in my life. So if you want to live with more joy and way less fear, it's really simple. First, you join us at the Goodness Exchange. Everyone around the world has the opportunity to access this kind of content. And we've promised no politics for about a decade, so you're safe from all that distraction as well. Second, you allow this new more positive, balanced worldview to put a spring in your step again. It can change the way you react to your kids, your coworkers, everybody you come in contact with. And the stories we write about can make you the idea person in your circles. These challenging times call for us to wake up and take control of our perspective. The people who use the Goodness Exchange have the ability to react to the harshness of the world much different because they know way more about what's right with the world. And that's a resource. So subscribe to the Goodness Exchange, our YouTube channel and the podcast, and use this content to live a more expansive worldview. It is still an amazing world out there, and you can be a part of it. Welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness. Okay, we're back with Dr. Jane Thompson. Jane is a historian. That's a whole nother part of her life we can talk about another time. She has a serious intellectual, rigorous life. And she has had the good fortune of watching a tide of young people apply for scholarships. 3,000 kids a year apply for 20 scholarships with a major Canadian bank, and she's in charge of their program to pick which 20 kids get the scholarship. And I wanted to talk to Jane because not only is she just an ordinary person who can explain something complex and worth celebrating in a way that, feels like you're sitting on the front porch. But also Jane dropped a whole bunch of things on me in our pre-call that I really hadn't given much thought to, because I'm always the cheerleader for the innovators and the whatever it is, what's right with the world. But you're seeing stuff on the perimeter that I think we all should be reminded of too. Talk to us a little about the ripple effect, because you give a kid a little belief, a little energy, and there's no way for us to actually know what then ripples out from there. Talk to us a little bit about the ripple effect of this.
It's so hard to track, and there's the obvious things when we do our follow-up interviews with our alumni and we ask them questions like this. And again, because we're not setting out to exactly deal with financial needs, sometimes I'm kind of blown back by it. And one young woman who was an immigrant from the Philippines with her family, and she said, and I won't give you all the details, but basically her family did not have secure housing, like at all. They were right on the verge of being homeless. And the stipend, so just a quick sidebar, we pay tuition up to a certain maximum for 4 years. We give the students a cash stipend for other stuff like housing, books, computers, whatever. And we give them offers of summer employment, either with our bank or with charities that the bank supports. So great. So basically what she said was that, which for a middle-class kid, our stipend wouldn't really cover their housing and their beer. It's not a lot of money for that. She said it moved her family into safe housing. Like, just that was the difference in their household economy, was the money we had intended for her school residence. Like, the effect on the edge is just so huge. So things like that, it's such a window into how people's family economies work. Or I had somebody who said, well, because I didn't have any debt when I graduated and started work, I helped my brother through his master's and his PhD program. So there's that. A lot of what we hear about is that kind of individual thing. But, to give you an idea of sort of the larger worldwide thing, I had lunch a little while ago with one of my alum she received her scholarship about 20 years ago. So that puts her in her, mid to late 30s. And she won the scholarship for kind of what I would call regular high school stuff. She saw that the kids in her high school weren't doing as well in science as she was, so she started a student-to-student tutoring thing. Great, fabulous, wonderful. And when we met her, we really liked her. What she did when she finished school was she started up, it was a tech startup where she had ideas about, with some other people, digital health solutions to women's health, like not down the road. They delivered this stuff in Senegal, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Madagascar, like not straightforward places to do this. But in fact, in a lot of those places, people have nothing at all and there's no infrastructure, but there's cell phones. So if you can deliver services through a cell phone, you're golden. Then, wait for it. She did that for 10 years. And then she came back to Canada and she is now working for this fantastic organization. You're going to have to interview her. That's the only way to do this.
All right.
And she will tell you some of the details wrong, but the general gist is right. This is an organization largely funded by the Canadian government, and they just go out and look for nonprofits who are doing innovative, great work around the world. Like it's basically one of the ways we deliver foreign aid. So now they're delivering, like they supported AI-driven maternal health things in Kenya. They did energy financing in conflict zones, like crazy stuff. So I think she now has the perfect job. Because where I get to pick individual students, she's out there finding organizations making change, and she funnels government money to them. Like, how amazing is that?
And that is the ripple effect that can start from just helping someone with their cart in the grocery store. We'll just never know what shores a kind gesture, a kind word. The other day I was in the grocery store and this kid that was bagging was he was like a professional bagger. And, he was very thin and you could tell he was maybe 15 and hadn't reached his growth spurt at all. But boy, he was just all over. He was so wiry. He was like a rubber band man. So I said, my gosh, you're like a professional at this. I don't even want to touch this. I think you've got this. No telling when you apply the same rigor to what you're doing here in your adult life, no telling what you're capable of. I'm just so impressed and I don't even know you. I'm telling you, I think the kid got 6 inches taller as I stood there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what that'll ever come, but like we can't miss our opportunities in ordinary everyday life to say what we're thinking to a young person when we've got a good thought. And, something lovely about them. Because I don't think kids hear lovely things.
And sometimes the people around them who you kind of think should be doing that, it's not their fault. Their parents are working 2 jobs each and they've got aging parents to take care of. So it's not on their mind. And I have to remind myself, guidance counselors are not all in the business of helping kids get into university and finding scholarships. Some of them are trying to keep kids in school and out of jail.
Yes.
So
right.
If that's where you're at and you are the one kid who really has a shot, that guidance counselor figures, oh, you've got it. You've got this. I'm over here in juvenile court. So anytime any of us can do that, I believe in you, you're amazing.
Yes.
Just put it out there. You got to do it. And I'm with you. You said this earlier. You don't know what part of it will hit. Like sometimes I'll talk to my alumni. I kind of knew them 15 years ago and they'll say, Jane, when you said blah, 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 I have remembered that forever. And I'm like,
yes,
I said that? Really?
Yes.
I don't remember saying that.
Okay.
But that's okay.
Jane is reiterating something because she talks to a lot of people. A lot of people don't talk to a lot of people. But of course, when I was a dentist, I talked to 30 people a day. And I concur with that totally. If you're in some kind of a world where you converse and interact with lots of people every day, you got to take it seriously. You got to take every move seriously because you don't know what gift you might give someone. Yeah. And I thank you for reminding us of that big picture awareness. Now we can go 2 directions here. I want to go with the serial problem solver thing.
I got one for you.
Okay, just a second, because I do want to just go back because this something that's a reality check before we keep on celebrating. I some kids succeed despite their parents. Like some kids got a leg up because their parents, they might have a tiger mom, or, their folks are motivated in some way. Yeah. But others succeed in spite. And I think that there's something to what we're talking about here, of this knowing that people are investing in you, that they see something special in you. Because, and coming from a bank, I guess that's even more, it's, yeah.
Familiar language.
Talk to me a little bit about that. Like this being able to help a kid that's going to succeed despite.
Yeah. And I think, very occasionally we meet somebody who clearly, their parents have unmet needs because they're not putting good energy out there into the world. But that's small minority.
It's not as often as we hear about. That's right.
I think there's lots of kids where really it's just the ones I see are highly skilled in a bunch of different ways, and people just figure they're fine because, they're not failing out of school. They're doing this extracurricular stuff. So they just don't get necessarily a lot of attention. But I guess the thing, so that's the despite thing. And the third piece that fits into that is we do have a disproportionate number of children of immigrants. People come to Canada and they value education. They may be quite educated themselves or not, and they know they can get their kids a good education in this country. So huge focus on it, but maybe not a lot of resources. And a lot of, in those families, the message is take the safe path, follow the safe career, make sure you get a good job. And sometimes, and similarly at the high school level, they're like, why are you doing all of this stuff? You're founding your own charity, like you're doing food drives, like just study, just stay home and study. So the parents are doing it for all the best reasons.
Always. Yes.
Always, almost always, but
almost always.
What we're able to come in, and sometimes actually the kids come back and say, oh, my parents finally understand now that you have awarded me this scholarship. Now my parents are on side.
Yeah.
So that's the tricky thing, but I'm with you. Just that statement of belief, I believe in you. And I think when you can also say, I have seen a lot of people like you, and I'm here to tell you, you got what it takes. The other piece of that that's interesting, that could also be a whole other hour of conversation, is we then really spend quite a lot of time saying, and it's okay to make a few mistakes. Change your mind. Take a term off. Go to a different university. Like change midstream. All these things, which gets back to the socioeconomic stuff and the choices and all the rest of it. That thing of failure isn't final. I spend a lot of time trying to tell them that, because I think also these days, another whole hour conversation, there are real mental health challenges. These kids are under a lot of stress, and COVID didn't help, and the state of the world doesn't help. So we also spend a lot of time saying, if you feel kind of bad, that doesn't mean you've lost your mind. It is perfectly reasonable response to the world you're in to feel kind of bad for a little while. And this is how we get back onto not feeling so bad. So we try to address both.
That's another part of the conversation. To be able to have access to people who are validating the right things. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's easy in youth to stumble into a group that validate stuff that makes your life more complicated, right?
Yeah.
And so that is a huge point. That's another way people can be active and positive in kids' lives, is to validate the right things.
That's
right. Because you never know the messages they're hearing when they're outside of your scope. Okay, now let's get to that serial problem solver, because that's what I see. I got to mention two things right now. Okay, so episode 157 of this podcast is called University of Maryland's Do Good Institute puts progress on the syllabus. This is with a woman named Jenny Cox and Nathan Dietz, who are in charge of this amazing program at the University of Maryland called the Do Good Institute. It's, from what I understand, it's taken over the whole campus, and there are a lot of kids who choose Maryland because they know that the Do Good Institute is there, and it validates their urge to do something good in the world. And whether they're math majors or English majors, they found a way to incorporate it into all the majors that doing service to others. It's an innovative ideas and things. So if you want something that'll validate everything that Dr. Thompson and I are talking about, go to episode 157 of this podcast, and those two will blow you away. And the other one that I wanted to mention is this one we started out at the top, unlocking the potential, the real tools students need. Jane was just telling me before we started that she stumbled onto that. That's with a guy named AJ Craybill. Episode 203. He comes from quite a background that gives him real life experiences as a kid in the foster system. I think it's in Kansas City. And he works with school boards all over the United States to make sure that they're giving kids the real tools, that the school board level is worrying about the tools that the kids are getting. Because, what we get from them, what we see in their behavior is just a representative of the things that are not in their toolbox. They're grabbing a tool for violence because they don't have a tool for, reasoning or whatever, the kind of things that we need. So I think that that's a common thread through your work, Jane, is that you're giving kids more tools for their toolbox, because God knows what life is going to throw at them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting is recognizing that these kids are, by the time you've picked 20 out of, the 3,000 applications out of the 400,000 graduates, these kids are very high functioning. They can do a lot of stuff. As my mother used to say about movie stars, they can ride horseback and tap dance, like all kinds of stuff they can do. But nevertheless, they're 17 years old, and they still need somebody like me to say, it's okay to change your major. I know you thought that bioscience and pre-med was the thing, but it's not, and that's okay. Like, they still need that. And the fact that you're sad that your dog died doesn't mean you're suffering from chronic depression. Really, it's okay to be sad, and you will come out of it. Be sad for a while. It's going to be fine. If you're suffering from chronic depression, that's something else, and we'll deal with that too. But just just another adult voice, that thing of it takes a village, is so true. And, as you said, when you're, saying nice things to the young man who's bagging the groceries, you just can't tell what that's going to do. And similarly, you want to avoid being the fact that I'm having a bad day. If I let myself say something negative to somebody, I have no idea where that's going to go or how it's going to land. So I try very, very hard not to do that, to guard that and not let that out, to let the good vibrations out into the world.
So, so that gets to this point of kids, they're in a loop with you. They're in a positive reinforcement loop with you. And so they've got that same energy, that same psyche, that same ethos out in the world. I imagine that they do the pay it forward thing a lot.
They totally do. So first of all, two things. I really want to tell you the story about this serial changemaker because he's such a great guy. And you can see how he is, he just has the mindset of, if it's in front of me and I can make it better, I should make it better. Like, totally. And then I'll tell you how all these folks contribute to our program. So this lovely young man, who I will call L, when we met him, he was in high school and he was interested in environmentalism. And that's great. young people do all kinds of fabulous things. What he decided to do was that the kids in his middle school, so like grade 7 and 8, local middle school, feeder into his high school, seem to not know anything about this. A lot of these kids, you find out later, it's their younger siblings. Gives them the line of sight. So he, along with a group of his friends, organized a whole program, and they went into these feeder schools to teach these kids about environmentalism and all of the rest of it. Cool. Like, you would think, again, you kind of think the grown-ups aren't doing this. Well, apparently the grown-ups were not doing it. But then it went on, because the more he got to know them, the more he realized and talked to them, they were really anxious about the move from grade 8 into high school. It was very scary, and they were very worried about it. And he, in his spare time, from being a fabulous guy in all these ways, was doing like improv comedy. So he got a bunch of his friends together, and they put together a little thing, and they went into these feeder schools, and they did a whole improv comedy workshop series to help these kids feel better about transitioning to high school. Because they didn't have to, but they just saw it like, oh dear, here are these kids. They're worried about this. We could help them. Let's help them. Okay, fast forward. We give him a scholarship. While he is still in school, in university, he develops this workshop for healthcare professionals, which he describes as a deep immersion in the life of a low-income young man, so that these healthcare professionals can understand how to make their practice more culturally appropriate. Like, I don't know if you found this in dentistry or how mixed the community is you serve, but, some people going into a hospital, if a healthcare provider approaches them in a certain way, that is not going to work. And the person will go away and not come back and not get the healthcare they need. He hasn't graduated yet. He's out there in the hospitals delivering this stuff. Okay, so then we go forward a few more years. Now he's a doctor. And, he could be just sitting around either doing surgery or being a general practitioner or whatever. He sets up a clinic during COVID because in this community where he was practicing, there was a lot of vaccine hesitancy. So doing some research and doing some reading, he said, okay, what we really need is to find a way for healthcare professionals to just dial it down and have conversations, non-judgmental, informational conversations with people in language they can understand. So I don't know that they wrote scripts, but I kind of suspect they did. They did the training. They got this thing up and running. And the vaccine hesitant patients who came through the clinic, 84% of them got vaccinated against COVID. Not from lecturing them, but from conversing with them. So this is what I mean. And he does music on the side. He's a great person. But what fascinates me is, and we have both kinds. We've got another young woman who, she started a thing to make science education and practice more accessible to young women. 20 years ago, when we gave her a scholarship, she started it when she was 15. She's still doing it. She runs this thing as a national charity. She's the executive director of it. So some of our scholars are very, they're passionate about something from a young age, and they just follow it with incredible rigor. And some of them are they're problem solvers. So whatever problem comes up, they solve it. Yeah, it's really cool. I feel so lucky to get to hang around with them and just hear what they're up to.
Now, and I'm sure we could go on for hours with story after story.
Yeah.
So what do you think this says about the return on investment? Like, if people want to be cold about this, what do you think this says about the return on investment for your bank or for
what's really interesting is if you sort of start from cold, hard dollars and you move from there. Research that was done in 2010 by a really great Canadian organization, they figured out that a 4-year degree compared to a person with a 4-year degree compared to a person with only a high school diploma, the difference in a lifetime earning was $1 million. So that's just the money, the ROI. That's just the money. So, and what we are paying out is less than a tenth of that per student. So yeah, huge ROI there. But then you get other people's research, which, I've heard at conferences. I probably can't give you a citation, but people with university degrees, this is very unfair. But even if you equalize for the background they came from, they just have better outcomes. They live longer. They're healthier. They have fewer addiction problems. They, have longer spans in each job, like just almost any indicator of well-being. So on the one hand, that's unfair in a society where university education is not accessible to everybody. But what it does say is if you can lift a person up to complete a university degree where they wouldn't have otherwise, huge, huge impact. And then even greater is this stuff we're talking about, where we're not giving out scholarships because you're brilliant. We're giving them out because we believe you can create positive
better
social
world.
Change.
Yeah.
Better world. So I got to believe that there's a huge return on that investment, but it's super hard to quantify.
One thing I really want to clarify here is that you and I are talking about a population of kids that their best option in the world is to go to college, but they may not have that opportunity. Because I think there are probably some people listening to this podcast that think not everybody should go to college, that some people are just born electricians. They have the right mind. I can't do anything but plug. I'm kind of a smart person and I just can't understand electricity. I couldn't understand it when I took physics in college or...
But you know what? To those people, what I would say, see how excited I am? I can't even let you finish your question. Rude. Is because in Canada, the word college typically means a community college, right? It's a 2-year diploma institution.
Okay.
A 4-year degree granting institution is called a university. Our scholarship can be used for either.
Okay.
So we don't get a lot of kids using it, but we had a young man who was in U, and he lived up north, and really all he wanted to be there weren't enough trained electricians in his community. So he used our scholarship to come south, and he studied at a technical college, and he qualified as an electrician, and he went home, and now his community has an electrician.
Okay,
so how fabulous is that?
That's the clarity I wanted to put into this, is that, okay, that's a big qualifier here because the nomenclature is different in the United States.
Yes,
college and university are used pretty much interchangeably. Yeah. And then when we're talking about people who learn to be master diesel mechanics or plumbers or electricians, we're talking about trades. Yeah. And trade school is not normally what you think a scholarship program like you would be investing in, but I see where you're going there. Yeah, that was just a little side thing I wanted to get clarity about, because I know that what we really want is a population of people that are doing what they're uniquely built to contribute. And that doesn't mean everybody has to be doing great in, whatever it is, right? Statistics or, Okay. So then there's another thing I'd like you to comment on. Are there recurring themes? Is there, like, students are attacking problems? What I hear you saying is a lot of the students that we award these things to are attacking problems. Like, is there a pattern that you're seeing in young people that teaches you something?
What I have seen.
Innovation or whatever?
All of the above. What I've seen is that there are clear through lines over time that are stable, because when kids become aware of them, they are incensed. These kinds of kids. So, racism, anti-racist activity, organization has been huge for the whole time I have been doing this. A concern about the environment. They find out what a lousy job the grown-ups have been doing, and they really are passionate about doing something about it. And just all kinds of, I guess, what I would call social justice work. So that's consistent for sure. And they just can't believe that this can't be solved. Like, cause we're going to solve this. So good. Cause we need these fresh infusions of energy, right? Because some of us are sort of battle worn from years on the ramparts here. It's a good thing we've got fresh talent coming in. What I would say is that over the years, I have seen the analysis get much more sophisticated, which is, I think, probably connected with social media. But the example I give is that 25 years ago, there were kids who were campaigning against bullying. They had anti-bullying, clubs, associations, campaigns, whatever, over here. And then there was somebody over here saying, well, we really need to address, the discrimination against the LGBTQ plus community. That's important. This is no good. There's all kinds of discrimination here. And then somebody else would come up, third club, and say, young people have mental health problems. We need to have better mental health supports in these schools, and I'm going to campaign about it. Well, fast forward 20 years, now they understand that the gay kids are being bullied because they're gay. So they're anxious and depressed because they're being bullied because they're gay. Like, they understand now how it works. Or it used to be there was environmentalism over here, which had to do with trees. And there was anti-poverty work over here, which had to do with poor people. But now they understand, well, if, we have heat waves, the people who are affected are poor people who can't afford air conditioning. So in fact, the climate crisis is all tied up in social class. Like, they get that. They're 17 and they get the way it's all
connected.
That's really cool.
That is a really important point. And that is why I kind of am strident about a few things that this work has taught me over the last 12 years. And it's that we have to let the next generations shine in whatever they think is important, because they're standing on the edge, on the horizon. They can see what's coming. And while you're in my generation and the one between us and the college kids see a different landscape in front of them, these young people, they see a whole different world.
And it's their world. They're going to have to live in
to walk into. Yes. Yeah. I love that. Okay. Now, you're a historian. What's the horizon of history on this, do you think? Tell us something that we can go away with as we start to wrap this up.
Well, I think the really good news for people that I can bring to it from, the dusty library shelves is that I know there's a lot of bad news. And I have two examples. One example is that if you look, people much smarter than me have a series of measures on the health of democracy. And around the world over the last 20 years, it is not looking good. It is on the decline across many countries. So that fuels a lot of the bad news that we read that is burning our brains out. However, if you can back up to the historian's point of view and say 200 years ago or 300 years ago, there was no democracy anywhere. The United States 250 years ago, the great democratic experiment, because it was starting and it was totally different. So this is the one step back. It's looking a bit discouraging just at the moment if you compare it to 20 years ago. But in the big scale of time, we're way ahead. And the other thing I actually have three things. The other one, I've got a friend who's a very well-read, well-educated union organizer, reads very widely across the political spectrum. And he keeps reminding me, things are actually a lot better on all kinds of fronts. One of them, in Canada, real wages are rising. In the last few decades, people are better off than they were. And we just don't hear very much about that. It's all, inflation this year versus last year, and I can't buy what I could before. And it's like, no, people are better off. So that's one. And the other one is worldwide. And this stuff comes out of probably the UN. Life expectancy is rising like everywhere. And it's true there was a bump in COVID. But if you take the historically long view, life expectancy is just rising, rising, rising. And healthy life expectancy, that's a different measure. How long do you live in good health? Up, 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 up. Maternal mortality, down, 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 down. Infant mortality, down, 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 down. So you just have to blow up your scale a bit. It's good. Life is good. Did Henry VIII have hot showers every morning? No.
No.
Do we? Absolutely. That's amazing.
Well, and that does get back to something that, you're grounded in this river that you say you're standing in, this river of possibility. So it's some people would say like that about me too. I'm grounded in this river of possibility that I see every day by doing the work we do. But for others, what do you suggest people pay attention to? Like I'm sure you're choosy about what you give your attention to. And that's part of my message to people. When I if you were to ask me what I really wish people knew, I would probably say something about, start caring much about your worldview as you do about your abs.
Took the words right out of my mouth. So first of all, I think in the worldview thing, there's awareness of what's around you and there's awareness of yourself. You need to know which supports you better. Is it joy, which I think comes out of curiosity and new stuff? A new tree you've never seen before, a new bird you've never seen before, whatever. Or are you a person who needs stability and familiarity? Is that what's actually going to float your boat and keep you sane? I think we all have some of each, but it's important to know what counts. So for me, I read only, first of all, in terms of myself, I read only the headlines in the newspapers of record. I burn through that. And then I pretty much go back to Jane Austen and I just keep rereading Jane Austen because I need a lot of stability and familiarity. And that makes me feel like, okay, it is a truth well accepted that a young man, like blah, 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 blah. Jane Austen's always going to say that when I open the front page of Sense and Sensibility. So that's me. But what
do you really, like, are there possibilities that you're seeing that you think other people aren't seeing or things that you really wish we knew?
Oh yeah, totally.
As we wrap up, let's wrap up on that question because we ended up with about 5 questions I didn't get to ask you. But I think if you could lay that on us, like, what are the possibilities that you see that others probably don't? Just because.
Okay, so I have 2 thoughts here. There's sort of the what can you do, and then what I think about how you should kind of think about things. So what I would say is what you can do is if you take the word support, how do I use my time, my talent, and my treasure to support young people? So we have already talked about this, and it's what you said, is support the people around you. Mother Teresa said this, for heaven's sakes, don't come to my mission. Stay home and help the people around you. Lead a good life where you're living it. So if there's kids on your block, help them. As you say nice things to the grocery boy, tutor in your high school. Like right there, just believe in young people and tell them you believe in them. So that's the one thing. The second thing is support them with that's time and talent. Support them with your treasure. And because I've been doing this for a long time, I will say 2 things. First of all, in an institution of education that you know something about, and if you don't and you want to do this with a charity you know something about, Bonzer, bless you. But I'm talking school, so I would say whatever school you know something about, donate a little money. And if you really want to get a boost and think, I know I've done something right now, write them a letter and say, this is a donation to your emergency bursary fund. So when that girl blows a tire, she goes to the financial aid office and they say, no problem, we can give you $200. That's the difference. If that bursary fund has the $200, she stays in school. So the leverage on emergency bursary funds is huge. So that's what I would say about that one. And then the other thing you asked me is there's something I wish people knew. And this all kind of ties together. As much as the program I work on is national, it is delimited to Canada. You have to go to a Canadian university. But what I would say is, if you're worried about the state of the world and you think this problem is too big, isn't there a magic bullet? I'm here to say there's a magic bullet. Give some money to somebody like UNICEF or Plan International that supports the education of girls and women, because the education of girls and women makes everything work. When you go into a community and lift the education level of girls and women, they have fewer children, their children are healthier, their household income goes up, the prosperity of the community goes up. It's absolutely unbelievable the leverage you get on educating girls and women around the world.
Those are two striking points. I knew a little bit about the second one, but the first one, I've never heard those words. Bursary. Can you repeat that again?
Emergency Bursary Fund. And even if
And
they call it
most
something else, they will know what you're talking about, and they all have.
Okay. This is exactly how I like to end my podcast, with what people can do next.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why we got to talk to people who have lived with rigorous intention like you. We're all wanting to know what we can do next, large or small. And that second one is so important. All over the world is important. The statistics, you were talking about statistics that show the world is definitely getting better. Boy, the statistics in that light, when you educate girls and women, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable, and it's fast. It's fast, in a community, it's right away. So my last thought is, you started this podcast mentioning mindset. And I have got to say, and I so appreciate the work you are doing, because I just fell down your rabbit hole, because they make you feel so great. So other people have said this before me, but first of all, I would say, if you can, it was Dr. Rao who was talking about mindset, I guess. If you can live in a state of gratitude, it will help you frame your own experience, whatever's happening to you. If you can just stay focused on what you're grateful for, that's huge. It will enable you to continue doing the good work. And the second thing I would say is, if you can just stay focused on your values and your purpose, and not worry about the external recognition you get, then again, you can do the good work.
Yeah, I think we've got a recognition-oriented society.
We sure do.
Yeah. Like, there's people who will post something on Facebook, and if they don't get the likes or the shares that they want, take it right down and never make a post like that again. I mean, like...
And LinkedIn is the same, right?
Yes,
I'm humbled by this honor.
Yeah,
it's like, please.
Oh, God, I know. We could go on about those two topics as well. But I want to finish on this positive note, that if you see young people in your world, or old people, or whoever, neighbors, that are doing things just for the sake of service to others, reward that behavior, become a multiplier. That's how we turn this ship around right now. This funny chapter that we're in is would be considered by most the step backward stage of 2 steps forward. But if we want to get those 2 steps in forward, we're going to have to support each other and do the kind of things like Dr. Thompson has talked about for the last hour. Thank you so much, Jane.
It's just been such a pleasure, Linda. Thank you for everything you do to move this work ahead.
Okay, well, we're doing it together. That's what we're doing. That's what I want everyone to take away who's listening to this episode. Go out, find a kid bagging groceries that's doing it with rigorous intention. Talk to a waitress about what you see in her that maybe somebody else doesn't. Support your nephew whose parents maybe come down on him a little hard and aren't seeing the little light that you see there. That all these things matter, and thank you for reminding us what a connected and belief-based world this is.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, have a great day, everyone. Thanks.